Hello, and welcome to our YouTube channel, Medical Tourism, where we will be talking all about the things you need to know and my personal experience of what will make your journey easier if you are considering traveling abroad for your medical needs. So whether you're considering plastic surgery procedures in Mexico, in Europe, or within the United States, or you want to go south of the border to get your prescriptions filled, I will be covering all the details to make your trips as safe as possible, to ease your stresses, and what to do, what not to do, so you feel very confident in your choices and getting out there and getting done what you need to get done or getting the medication or treatment that you need. So this is actually our very first episode. So if you can do us a huge favor by clicking the like and subscribe button or save this podcast if you're listening to the audio version, I would greatly appreciate it. In this episode, I will be talking about my two favorite and most reputable pharmacies in Tijuana, Mexico. So if you've never been to Tijuana, these will be the pharmacies that if you're coming from San Diego, headed south into Mexico at the San Ysidro entry point, they will be a max of 10 to 15 minutes away from the border entry. So it's a very short drive or Uber ride to these pharmacies. And I've been there to both of these locations many times and have found their service to be reputable. So I will be sharing some tips to help you get discounts and reasons why you may choose one pharmacy over the other. Technically, both of these pharmacies are chains, so they have multiple locations, but the particular locations that I will be talking about, I find to be extra safe, and Tijuana can be a little bit chaotic at times. So one of these pharmacies feels a little bit more calm than the other. There's less traffic to brave. The parking situation is safer. So I'll go over the benefits of both. Sometimes I go to both. If I can't find things at one place, I might go to the other. But let's get started. My first choice for a pharmacy in Tijuana, my number one choice, would be Gusher Pharmacy inside Plaza Rio Mall. So Plaza Rio is a very nice upscale mall, and what I like about Gusher Pharmacy is that it is inside the mall. So you get secure parking, you have to pay for parking, it's a gated lot with security guards, and then once you get inside the parking lot, it's usually pretty consistently easy to always find a place to park that's not a huge walking distance from the pharmacy. So the way you would go would be towards Ave Revolucion. There's like a big statue and a roundabout. You make a turn at this statue and then you make your entrance. You'll see the Sears and you'll see the Gusher Pharmacy right in front. And once you get inside, it is definitely a little bit chaotic inside. There's usually quite a few people and you'll be having to wait. So you may consider wearing a mask if you want. They are very proactive still in Mexico about mask use and hand sanitization. They check your temperature when you get inside at many public establishments that you go to, at least thus far in 2023, post-pandemic. Maybe they'll stop doing that at some point in the future, but I don't know when that will be. So come with a mask. And if they stop you when you get in, the security guard at Gusher will take your temperature. Then you're inside. Now, one cool thing that you need to know about Gusher Pharmacy is that you can get a discount card for 30% off your medications. What do you need to get this discount card? Well, you need a small photo that's like a passport or ID photo that's really small, about the size of a quarter. So if you're very prepared and you just happen to have one of these tiny photos, you can bring it and they will make the discount card with your photo on it on the spot. But if you don't have the photo and you want to take an extra 15 or 20 minutes, what you can do, and they will guide you as to where to go inside the pharmacy, is that 2 doors down, there's a photo place, and you pay the equivalent of a few dollars and get a passport photo. You tell them that it's for your Gusher discount card. You get your picture taken next door. You take that photo back, and then they'll make you that 30% off discount card on the spot. The other thing that I like about Gusher is that very consistently, there's always someone that speaks English. Now, to make things easier, I suggest having the list of medications you need written down on a piece of paper. The reason for this is that inside Gusher, it can be loud, and there is a large plastic window as a barricade between you and the pharmacist. So you're having to speak through that plastic. So sliding a piece of paper underneath with your medications written down in large print is the easiest way to get your prescriptions filled. But there are medications that you can get with a prescription from Tijuana, meaning a Tijuana prescription, but they do not accept prescriptions from out of state. Now, what you can't do at Gusher is go next door to a doctor. A lot of pharmacies in Tijuana will have a doctor situated on site where you pay a very small fee for a consult, and someone will assist you in translating, and you can get your prescription filled and then walk back next door to the pharmacy to get that prescription filled. Now, we'll talk about the second pharmacy that I like first, and then talk about medications that you can and cannot get with a prescription and things that I don't recommend trying to get. So the second pharmacy that I really like is Farmacia Las Barata. So this is a pharmacy that you'll see all around Tijuana with a yellow and red sign. And I tend to go there more lately because sometimes Gusher can be out of certain medications. And what's cool about Farmacia Las Barata is they have delivery people on site. So they're there with motorcycles and little delivery compartments on the bikes. And so if they're out of a medication at Farmacia Las Barata, they will tell you that if you can wait 20 or 30 minutes, they will then go to another pharmacy, get the medication you need. You'll just be sitting, waiting, chilling in your car, maybe reading a book. They have usually some benches and a seating area, and so you can get those prescriptions filled. Now, one versus the other. At Gusher Pharmacy, they have a very clean restroom. So if you've had a confusing journey trying to find it, even with my directions, you're having trouble, you'll be able to have a clean place to go to the bathroom. And Plaza Rio is also a very nice upscale mall. So not only does Gusher have a cafe inside, so you can get fruta with pico de gallo, or you can get elote, which is a delicious corn dish that I recommend. You can get a really good sandwich a couple doors down. They also have an amazing sandwich place, like literally one of the best sandwiches I've ever had. It's like 2 doors down from Gusher Pharmacy. So good. And then inside the mall, if you walk all the way through Gusher into the back, there is an entire mall. So you can get frozen yogurt. You can get Starbucks. There are bougie, Instagram-worthy cafes at the front of Plaza Rio. There's like this pink one with flowers. It's beautiful. There's also some super cool clothing shops, boutiques, makeup. There's like the equivalent of a Target where you can get some nice cosmetics, L'Oreal, Maybelline, all of those brands. And so you can do a lot of shopping there. And so if you found that your ride into Mexico was just a little intense, then you'll be able to feel super safe putting your feet up, taking a minute to breathe inside the mall at Plaza Rio. I like that there's the bathroom right there. I like that there's food on site, and just taking a few minutes to unwind if you had a stressful journey is really, really nice. Now, if you need a paper physical prescription to get the prescriptions filled that you need, you won't be able to see a doctor on site at Gusher. So what should you do, and how do you know if you need a prescription? Well, there's a couple things you can do. You can always call ahead, and you have to dial 01152 before dialing a number into Mexico. The last time I tried calling Gusher, it was a little hard to get a hold of them on the phone, but usually it's pretty easy. You just call on the phone and say, habla inglesi. You ask if they have the prescriptions you need. You'll wait on hold, and they'll tell you whether they have it and whether or not you need a prescription. But in my opinion, the easiest thing is to just go in person. Now, most things like topical creams, medications for your heart, for blood pressure, for diabetes, certain diet medications that are not stimulants, all of the basic things you can pretty much get without a prescription. But when you're going into the medications that are a little bit more serious, like narcotics or antibiotics, you can get combo antibiotics down there, like Augmentin. But if you want to get something like a Z-Pack, for example, azithromycin, you do need a prescription. So the way to get a prescription, you could go to a Farmacia Las Barata and then get a prescription filled if there is a doctor on site. But sometimes what can be the most convenient is just walking down Ave Revolucion in the daytime to pretty much any of those super mainstream pharmacies where they have a doctor next door. Usually you will see, just strolling around, that it's obvious that they have a doctor next door. It's usually a separate building, a separate entrance, and you'll pay in cash about $10 and see the doctor. You'll maybe wait anywhere between 15 to 30 minutes, depending on how many people there are. I would recommend doing this in the daytime hours. There's probably less of a wait the earlier in the day that you go, and you get that prescription filled. You will stumble your way through translating, and hopefully there will be somebody on site to translate for you, or you can be extra prepared and take a printout using Google Translate in Spanish to explain your problems so they can read it, write your prescription, and then you can go next door to that pharmacy and get the prescriptions. Now, sometimes the pharmacies on Ave Revolucion are a little bit more touristy, so they can be more expensive and therefore less reputable. I really like Farmacia Las Barata because sometimes Gusher is out of things, but the whole delivery situation where they will pick things up for you, if I'm in the mood to wait and don't feel like driving, it can be very convenient. And I feel that the service that I get at Farmacia Las Barata is definitely faster. And so you don't have to pay for parking because it's not inside a secured lot. So the parking is free. It's right there. I go to one that is just before the entry to the Sentry lane because I have global entry. So service is spot on. Service is fast at Farmacia Las Barata, and I don't usually have to wait, and there's less walking to get inside. So if I'm in a hurry, I might go there and then I leave. Now, I can't really make suggestions on certain medications. Most major pharmaceutical meds will be from the same pharmacy companies. So I get things like Retin A for my skin, like I said, blood pressure medications, certain milder antibiotics, anything topical you can get. There's also lots of beauty products that you can get that are the same thing that you would get in America, but slightly cheaper. I really love things like they have this drink that's basically like Pedialyte, but no calorie Pedialyte, that if you're doing a really intense workout can be nice to drink. And they have different soaps and lotions and ointments that you don't need prescriptions for. I would not suggest attempting to get any sort of narcotic substance or any sort of ADHD medication through these routes. Usually the way it works, I believe, to get anything that is a narcotic, you would need to go to a pain clinic. And definitely you would need to have some kind of paperwork if you're bringing back anything in volume. Usually they don't allow you to purchase in volume, but you would definitely get stopped at the border. For example, if you were walking across and having narcotics without some paperwork to back it up, it could theoretically make things slightly more difficult for you. If you are walking back, you may get pulled to secondary. So if you have a higher volume of slightly more controversial medications, I would consider driving. So I will be making a separate episode that talks more in depth about wait times, but just touching briefly upon whether you should walk or drive. So if you were to walk into Mexico, starting with driving or public transport, if you take the trolley, the very last trolley entrance at San Ysidro drops you off right at the San Ysidro port of entry. But if you have any mobility issues, I would definitely urge you to drive, because just the walk alone to get from the San Ysidro point of entry through the checkpoint and to the place where taxis and Ubers are, it's a very long walk and it's slightly uphill. So if mobility is a problem, do not walk, drive. And if you're walking, take your most comfortable shoes. Plan that your journey will take at least 5 hours or maybe the better part of a day. A lot of people make a day out of going into Tijuana because if you don't have global entry or a medical pass, you will be waiting at the border to cross back in line anywhere between a little over an hour if you're lucky to, I have waited as long as 3.5 hours. That was my longest wait in my car at the border. So the other benefit to walking is that your line may be shorter when you are walking back versus driving back. But the downside to that is there's not really anywhere to sit when you are standing and waiting in line. So if it's very cold or if it's very hot, there's not really anywhere in the shade. There's not anywhere to sit. So you'll be doing a lot of standing and waiting around. Now, there are some services that I'm vaguely familiar with that you can basically pay to get on a bus and have it drive you back across the border. So let's say you walk in, you get an Uber and go to the pharmacy and then take the bus back. You can do that, but if you have anything controversial, it could make things more complicated. Now, if you are driving, the number one thing that I would suggest is that you get Mexican car insurance. There are 2 companies that come up on my Google search called bestmex.com and bajabound.com. So you can buy insurance just for the day. So if your car is not protected with no insurance and you get into an accident and the police are present, it can be very unfavorable to you and get you in a lot of trouble. So things to know before you go. Number 1, I would double check to make sure that your cell phone works across the border, that you have connectivity to use GPS and Google Translate. If you don't have a phone that works and you want to be doing this on a regular basis, frankly, even if I was only going once, I would want to make very sure that my phone works. So check with your cell phone provider. I use a cell phone service called Google Fi. That is Google's own cell phone company. And what I love about Google Fi is that internationally, it is absolutely seamless, making the transition from San Diego crossing into Mexico. I can put in GPS directions where I'm at in the States, in San Diego, and seamlessly have directions that are very clear getting me to my location in Tijuana. If you are an inexperienced driver and not capable of being an aggressive driver, I would maybe not suggest driving over because it can be very chaotic. There's a lot of roundabouts in Tijuana that have multiple lanes. That would be your most likely point that you would maybe freak out. They can be a little bit scary. And so it's kind of like every person for themselves. Sometimes the traffic lights at the roundabouts work. Sometimes they don't. It'll take you a while to figure that out. But if you are a very confident driver, capable of being aggressive and keeping aware of your surroundings as far as other cars on either side of you and switching lanes quickly, then you could drive. Now, if you're taking your car, what I would not do, I would not bring any valuables in my car. I would make sure that my car is very clean and tidy inside. I once had my car totally picked on and super searched because it was messy and because I had some medication that they were not happy about the medication that I had in my car, even though I had a bottle with my name on it. So clean car. I would not bring a 70s hippie van because that's just asking for trouble. I would not bring any weapons, any guns, any knives, any marijuana, even though marijuana is legal in the States. The minute you cross into the border, they have drug sniffing dogs on site. And so should you have forgotten that you have pot in your car and you get pulled over to have your car inspected when you come in, you could get in very big trouble. So make sure your car is very neat, very tidy. I keep some jumper cables and some jackets, but I make sure my car is clean both inside and out before I go. The other thing that you need is your passport. There have been instances where I've been let back in once walking across when I didn't have my passport. I was just lucky that day and they let me in without my passport and I was able to get back in with my driver's license alone. But if you don't have a driver's license and you don't have a passport, I would really think hard before you go. Bring some sort of American documentation, a birth certificate, etc. The other thing that you need to bring is just the amount of cash that you think you will need. I would not bring an excess amount of cash. I would never, ever use my debit card. I used my debit card at a bank inside Plaza Rio to withdraw cash because I was going to the mechanic. I didn't have enough cash on me and they totally skimmed my number and I had to call my bank because a bunch of fraudulent purchases were made. Thankfully, my bank refunded them. So they do take major credit cards, Visa, MasterCard, American Express at most of these pharmacies. But if you're going into Mexico with your credit cards, usually or sometimes you need to call the credit card companies in advance to let them know that you'll be traveling. So when you do put your credit card in, you won't be rung up for fraudulent purchases. And then when they do check you out, I would have them ring you up in the local currency because the exchange rate is cheaper rather than running it in American dollars. If you're curious about how much something costs, they will always have a calculator handy to convert the price of how much your items will be in US dollars. Most pharmacies do take American money. And if you are going to Plaza Rio, you will need to be aware that before you leave, you want to take your parking ticket with you. Do not lose it. Do not leave it in your car. Keep it in a secure place where it won't fall out of your pocket. Then you'll go over to one of the parking machines, and I believe they accept US dollars, but they also take cards. And so you will pay the fee right before you leave at the parking machine, and then you will be able to leave the parking lot at Plaza Rio. So small amount of cash, just take what you need. Don't use a debit card. take some major credit cards because credit cards are much safer. And I would also dress rather modestly. I wouldn't wear any expensive jewelry. I wouldn't wear any high-end clothing. I would just try to look as plain and boring as possible to blend in. And you can go alone. I feel safe going alone because I'm pretty confident in this sort of thing. But if you want, bring a friend. I do recommend only going in the daytime. And if you decide to walk, so this is where making sure that your cell phone works gets very important, because sometimes taxi drivers can be a little bit crazy. And with taxis in Mexico, they do this thing where they have these buses with multiple people on them. And sometimes it just feels a little bit scary. So I don't like those sorts of bus situations. I much prefer Uber because it's just like how it is in America. You input your location where you want to go. Obviously, you'll need to know the address in Spanish and be able to find it in your phone. But usually you could tell an Uber driver where you need to go. A lot of them speak pretty good English and you can figure it out. And so for just a couple dollars, the charge will go through on your phone. It helps if you have an American dollar or two to tip them because tips are always appreciated. But that is the other thing that you can do. Now, if you're going to Mexico and driving back, you do need to be aware that your wait times will be long. How can you assure that your wait times might be shorter? Well, there is an app called Border Wait Times. There's a couple different ones, but there's also the official government one. So you could check on your phone to see what the border wait time is to assess if you want to maybe wait a little longer to grab some food. Usually in the evening hours, past dinner time, there's going to be a shorter wait getting back into San Diego than if you were to try to go in the afternoon. I would say around 3 or 4 p.m. Trying to cross back into San Diego, the border wait time is the longest. Then past 7 or 8 p.m., it starts to get shorter. Now, if you're going to be doing this regularly, you might want to consider getting Global Entry. Global Entry is a government program. It's called Sentry. And so make sure when you cross over, if you do not have Sentry, do not get yourself in the Sentry lane. I have accidentally gone in the Sentry lane before I had Sentry once, and they grilled me for about 15 minutes. So the first time you do that, there is no ramifications. If you're very nice, they will let you through. The second time, if you do it and you don't have Sentry, they would fine you something like $700. And the third time, they would impound your car. So I do not recommend attempting to go through the Sentry lane more than once. If you have medical procedures that you're interested in getting in Tijuana, wanting to go to the dentist, which I'll talk about in future episodes, most medical providers offer what's called a medical pass that you pay $20 or so at the doctor's office. They give you this medical pass. And so if you're crossing back via vehicle before 8 p.m., you will go like you're going to go in the Sentry lane, but it will take you to the medical pass lane, which is just to the left of the Sentry entry point. And taking that medical pass lane will help you bypass the standard wait, and it will be much shorter. So that's pretty much it. That sums up my knowledge of pharmacies in Tijuana. Those are my favorites. I'm sure there's most pharmacies, if they look very clean, if they have a nice sign and a designated parking lot, you'll be able to guess just by looking at it, even if it's not one that I recommend, whether or not it's reputable based on how clean and polished it is. They take a lot of pride in being clean and tidy at the nicer establishments. So I hope this helps all of you. And if you have any questions, feel free to reach out in the comments and I will do my best to answer them. You can also donate via PayPal if you like what you heard and this information was helpful to you. Please remember, I am not a doctor. I am not a medical provider. And heading into Mexico, you do so at your own risk. I know that there's a lot of controversy around whether or not Tijuana is safe, but personally, I go in the daytime all the time. I stick to the touristy, busier areas. I always have a plan for where I'm going. I don't stroll around with a big handbag. I just take my essentials, and I'm always mindful of my surroundings, and I've always felt safe. So that's my experience, but I hope you enjoy yours. Thanks for listening, and thanks for watching.